So I'd like to introduce tonight's moderator, my colleague, Shay Dawson. She is the 22 to 2024 National Women's History Museum U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg Predoctoral Fellow in Gender Studies. A mouthful. Shay is a writer, a researcher, and a museum education professional, and a very, very valued member of our team. Shay earned her graduate degree in museum studies from Johns Hopkins University with a focus on museum education and diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. Professionally, she is interested in the ways museums and cultural heritage sites can facilitate community and foster empathy, as well as the creation of robust, accessible programs and resources to support museums in serving those communities. I'll let Shay do the rest of the introductions, but welcome, Shay. Thank you so much for moderating tonight.
Awesome. Okay, now you can hear me. All right, so hello everyone. As Jen mentioned, my name is Shay Dawson, and I am so excited to moderate tonight's discussion on Pauli Murray and her inclusion in the American Women's Quarters program. I'm even more excited to share a few interesting things about each person joining me on stage tonight. So to my right, in the lovely pink suit, we have Ashley Bailey. Ashley joined the United States Mint in April 2020 to serve as the Equal Employment Opportunity Officer in the Office of Equal Employment Opportunity, formerly the Diversity Management and Civil Rights Office. Prior to the Mint, Ashley served as the Complaints Program Manager at the U.S. Agency for Global Media, formerly the Broadcasting Board of Governors, and the Senior EEO Specialist at National Transportation Safety Board. In 2009, Ashley began her federal government career at Red River Army Depot in Texarkana, Texas. In her 6-year tenure with the Army, she served in many different positions, including deputy to the EEO officer, as well as the interim acting EEO officer at the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Ashley was awarded the Achievement Medal for Civilian Service twice during her Army career. And next to the lovely Ashley, we have Christian F. Nunez. Christian became now president in August of 2020. She was previously appointed vice president by the board in May of 2019. As the second African-American president in the organization's history, the youngest person of color, and the youngest president in more than 40 years, Nunez is leading the organization through an intersectional lens, bringing a diverse coalition of grassroots activists to work against structural sexism and racism. Christian is a former now board member and committee chair, as well as a licensed clinical social worker, consultant, and woman minority business owner. She is an active community organizer and public speaker. Along with her activism for mental health, Christian has more than 20 years of experience advocating for children and women's issues. And on our last far side of the stage, we have Rosita Stevens-Holsey, niece of Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray. Rosita is a dynamic educator, author, activist, community engager, and budding family historian focused on sharing stories of historical and pioneering voices for children and adults alike to be inspired by. Rosita Stevens-Holsey is president of Preserving Pauli Murray, LLC, which she founded to uplift the legacy of her aunt, the Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray, and co-author of the award-winning biography, Pauli Murray, The Life of a Pioneering Feminist and Civil Rights Activist. Prior to moving back home to Washington, D.C., Ms. Stevens-Holsey was a systems engineer for IBM, a regional coordinator of minority studies for the Department of Defense Overseas School System, founder of a management consulting firm in Atlanta, Georgia, and director of the Regional Minority Purchasing Council in partnership with the Savannah Chamber of Commerce. Before returning to teaching in 2008, Ms. Stevens-Holsey was an advocate, program coordinator, and director of a nonprofit organization which provided services for persons with disabilities. So believe it or not, these amazing accomplishments for each of these women is actually just only scratching the surface. You can read more about each of these fantastic individuals on our website. So, welcome everyone. So, as mentioned, today we are going to be discussing Pauli Murray with those who are either tied to her and or to her work. Murray's Quarter speaks to her long-lasting legacy. The AWQ program itself also further solidifies the importance of various forms of representation for women. By placing women on everyday objects such as currency, we are reminded of the significant impact many women, both past and present, have on the shaping of our nation. That said, we all know Murray's legacy extends well beyond currency, which we will discuss today. So to kick us off, I have a question for all of you. As we are here tonight celebrating Murray's life, what does the word legacy mean to each of you through the lens of your own unique areas of focus, whether that be in your work or your lived experience? Yeah.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction.
Of course.
Is my mic on? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So legacy to me simply means leaving a place better than when you found it. As she stated, I work in equal employment opportunities, so my goal is to make sure that federal employees are granted equal employment opportunities and make sure that our workplace is a place that mirrors the diversity of the Washington, D.C. area and other areas where the Mint is. So my goal is always to make sure that I'm leaving a little bit behind for the next person, making sure that there's continuity when I leave, and so we can make sure that we're leaving the federal government, and by extension the Mint, better than when we found it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for moderating, and thank you for everyone for having me on this panel. I agree. I think legacy also means leaving it better than you left it, but I also think it's important to think of legacy as simply creating a space for growth, a space for something that's better, and also, like, I love the word hope, something that sticks out to me when I think about legacy. I know when I think about my son, I think about whatever I leave for him, I want to be hopeful, and I want a place for him to grow and for him to nourish and feel like he has a path. So legacy to me includes all those things as well.
Hello? Okay. I turned it on correctly. Legacy for me means something slightly different, but all of those things. To know someone very well and to be a part of their family. Someone who was so humble, someone who didn't care about wealth or fame. So legacy for me makes me feel that for someone who worked all of her life for other people in all kinds of situations, whether she was paid or not, whether anyone knew, and mostly behind the scenes. Women at that time usually were not out front when there were civil rights issues and marches and things of that nature. Oftentimes they were refused to be on the stage or with the men that they had worked for. But Pauli did a lot of the legal work when she was in situations that have affected so much of our lives in terms of equal opportunity for all and for all human beings, regardless of their culture, their race, their sex, or really anything. So a lot of what I found out about my aunt was after she died. She never bragged. It wasn't important to her to be the person on the stage. So it's very important to me that other people know the things that she did that not only affected people locally, but globally. So that's what I have tried to do in what I call uplifting her legacy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all of your thoughtful answers and your unique perspectives. Something I loved from the 7-minute clip was Pauli Murray's quote about patriotism, about fighting to make this country a better place, others might see it as critiquing or hating this country even. But by highlighting these things and working to make this a better place, leaving it better than Pauli Murray found it, that is legacy. And we can see that through the murals, and the conversation that we're having tonight as well. So my next question is actually for you, Ashley. So Pauli Murray's Quarter is the 11th in the American Women's Quarters program. Can you tell us more about the program and why Murray specifically was selected?
Absolutely. So in 2020, Congress passed the Circulating Collectible Coin Redesign Act, which laid out 9 years of circulating coin programs, starting with the American Women's Quarters. So in determining who to honor, it's vital, and actually it's written into the legislation, that the honorees are diverse ethnically, racially, geographically, across time periods, and even in their different fields of endeavor. So per the legislation, we consulted with 3 different groups: the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum, the National Women's History Museum, and the Congressional Bipartisan Women's Caucus. So by law, the designs cannot be of any living person, so all of our honorees are deceased women. The public was invited to submit a recommended candidate honorees via a web portal that the National Women's History Museum established, and we received more than 11,000 submissions. Yeah, so we consolidated those submissions and sent 5 of them up to the Treasury Secretary, and ultimately Secretary Yellen determined the final selection for the women to honor each year.
That's amazing. So actually, before we started today's program, I was chatting with some of the folks at the Mint about how in preparation for this event, I just keep thinking about how with this amazing program, there will hopefully be a generation of young folks, but specifically young women, who don't know any different from having women on currency versus, of course, to us, this is really exciting and a really big deal, as it should be, and it should continue to be.
Absolutely.
But it's also really cool to imagine that if I have kids, if people in my generation have children, that they won't know any different. And to even imagine a world, the world that we were in, to be shocked by that. And so this is just really exciting. So
It is really
thank you so much. Awesome. So Rosita, my next question is for you. I would love to know something from your perspective that most people do not know, or something that is not well known about Pauli Murray that you feel shapes who you are today and the work as well that you do today.
One of the things that were some of my earliest memories of her was her interest in reading and learning and sharing that with young people. I had always loved to read, and I was always amazed by her vocabulary, and I called it her wordsmanship. And so a lot of the time that we spent together was talking about specific books. Those of you who've seen pictures of her in her office, there were books from the floor to the ceiling. And she would go without eating to buy a book if she only had enough money to do one. And one of the things I think about that made me sort of follow in her footsteps was the way her passion was for certain people that she had met or read about or researched. And I remember when she was living in Virginia, and I visited her, and it looked like thousands of books. And I asked her about some, and she said, "What would you like to have?" She said, "I've read all the books in this room." I was amazed. I mean, it could have been a library. And she had another room with books, and I said, "What about those?" And she said, "Well, I haven't read those yet." So I was able to pry about 6 books away from her that I still treasure.
Do you remember what those books are offhand?
One book was about Gandhi. She really believed in nonviolent civil rights activism, and she had learned quite a bit from several people. And so I was very impressed by that. as forceful as she always seemed and as assertive as she always was, but she really believed in peace and doing things without violence. And some of that was used in the 40s at Howard in desegregating several restaurants in Washington, D.C.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So, Christian, Polly Murray was one of the founders of NOW. Why did Murray and the other founders see a need for the National Organization for Women in the 1960s?
Yes, this is such a great question, and I love what the film had to say about this, but I think it's really important to think about the time period when NOW was founded in 1966. This is 1 year after the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and it's also a period in time where we know, although women had the right to vote, we just had the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which gave Black Americans the right to vote. Women were still experiencing, as we clearly saw, sexism. Black women were clearly experiencing sexism and racism, and there really wasn't an organization out there that really truly addressed the needs of women regarding sexism. There's a lot of sex discrimination, and so NOW was founded on the need to really truly address sexism, and they really were targeted around the help wanted ads at the time that took place in the job wanted ads for where they segregated them for men and women, showing the difference in discrimination at the time. And I think it's really important to point that out because I think we clearly continue to see so many of those things currently today, like in 2024, still existing. What we see a fight for gender, with gender wage gap and things like that still occurring. But that's really truly how NOW was founded. Betty Friedan and Polly Murray had a conversation about the importance of having an organization that would really truly identify and work toward any discrimination and sex discrimination, but also too at that critical point in time address the intersections of sexism and racism as well. So NOW was founded from that, and as we clearly learned and heard today was, Reverend Dr. Polly Murray talked about intersectionality way before ever anyone else discussed that term or even coined that term. And in a lot of ways, she was like clearly said, prophet to a lot of cases and different things we're talking about to this day of really identifying important issues that we need to address. So she really helped set the founding principles of NOW, and she knew the importance that was needed to make sure that there was a place where women could get that help to fight discrimination regarding sex.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your thoughtful answer. I think this also connects back to our conversation about legacy. I think we can look to NOW and the work that's currently happening as a great example of that continued legacy. So Murray's Quarter includes the line, "Hope is a song in a weary throat." Could you share more with us about the significance of that line and why it was included on the quarter?
Absolutely. So the inscription is a line from Reverend Dr. Murray's poem, A Dark Testament, and A Song in a Weary Throat is also the title of her autobiography. So the coin designer who created this design, Miss Emily Damstra, decided to include the quote after she read the autobiography. And she said that what impressed her most was, and I quote, "The way Murray, with a determination and energy that leaves me in awe, repeatedly strove for justice despite the many institutional-sized obstacles in her way. It seemed to me that hope fueled the many facets of her life and work, so Emily felt it was appropriately symbolic to show Murray as part of the word hope in the coin design."
That's amazing. I love, too, I got a chance to look at the quarter as well. I think something that's really exciting is that, I know I mentioned before how important representation is, but I think this goes beyond just an image. I think it also gives us a glimpse into who these people featured on the quarter actually are and what they truly valued, which is even better than just an image. So one thing that I am personally wildly passionate about in the work that I do is the power of storytelling and personal lineage, and connecting that specifically to larger historical narratives. Rosita, your work captures this flawlessly as you continue to highlight and document Murray's story. How does your direct connection to Murray inform the work that you do now, both as it pertains to being a storyteller and a human rights advocate? And how would you say that this connection has shaped your journey at large?
Well, I was Aunt Paulie's youngest sister's child, and they couldn't be any more different than they are. So people who actually knew my mother, Rosetta, and Aunt Paulie would often mention that I seemed like I was Paulie's daughter. Oftentimes, we didn't live in the same city. We did a lot of writing, and I think that, excuse me, so I get very touched when I think about her. And I think that she influenced me so much by my just admiring her. So sometimes I say it was like osmosis. But we would talk about feelings, and she would ask me, what would I do in certain situations? And I would tell her things that I had started doing in the 6th grade in school and with Girl Scouts, and when I was in the Brownies, and then advocating for others in the Junior Red Cross. So I had that same kind of fire, I think, to help people. And I sort of found peace by working in situations where I was helping others. And she was very supportive of that. My mother would often be a little nervous about my saying things that I said and advocating for others, but not Aunt Paulie. She was very supportive of that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And listening to you talk and just knowing the work that you do, I think you are a great testament to the importance of keeping documents and keeping track of your family and your family history. It's important that we know our own personal narratives, but I think sometimes it's easy to forget, specifically once people are gone, that it's important while they're here to still continue to document those things, because those stories can have lasting impacts and a legacy. So I know we talked a little bit, Christian, about the importance of NOW and Pauli Murray's involvement, but could you tell us a little bit about how currently Pauli Murray's legacy manifests within your current initiatives?
Well, I want to just start by saying that I would not be in my position now, leading NOW, if it was not for Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray and the work and her contributions to NOW. I have to just put that out there because it's so important to know what she's done for the organization and setting the framework for organization as we work from an intersectional feminist perspective and understanding the importance of intersectional feminism. How that really has set the stone for me to be able to be the second African-American president in the organization's history. So I want to do that first. But also just really talking about the work that she has done with intersectional feminism and understanding the intersections and how power impacts different levels of oppression of women and their experiences in marginalized communities, including LGBTQIA community and things like that. I think it's important to understand that that's really shaped NOW's mission and vision and agenda. We have shifted our mission, vision, and agenda to become from a place of intersectional feminism and to have that approach with our grassroots advocacy. So that's a huge thing that we took in undertaking and rewriting our agenda from back in 2015, which is really truly inspired by what we've learned about the importance of intersectional feminism, which we have to truly credit to Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray. More importantly, I think when we think about the core initiatives that we are still fighting for today, I feel like in some ways it's unfortunate to say this, but I feel like we're still fighting for the same things. You know, we're kind of like in this hamster wheel. If we're going to tell the truth, right? We have to tell the truth. We're kind of in this hamster wheel. We're still catching ourselves. You know, Dr. Reverend Pauli Murray fought for child care. You know, child care that was affordable for all. Family Medical Leave Paid Act. She fought for abortion access. She fought for the ERA. She fought for Title IX and enforcement. She fought for education. And ending, sex discrimination and sexual violence in workplace and schools and sexual harassment. All these things Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray fought for in NOW and outside of NOW. And all of her contributions with legal expertise and in cases has made such major contributions legally, but also to women's rights, civil rights and women's rights. But we are still catching ourselves fighting for those exact same things today. We catch ourselves in this continued fight for, we get a little, and then women's rights, and then we have when people try to pull our women's rights back. But I will say, because of her, we have like this framework of what to do, like how to do it, how to approach it, how to look at it, how to set that argument, how to, how to fight back. And we can use what she's given us as guides to be able to say, this is unconstitutional, this is what inequality looks like, this is why gender equality is important, this is why we have to continue to fight for inclusion. This is what it looks like, and this is how we do it. So now as initiatives continue to fight for the same things. We are continuing to push for the Equal Rights Amendment, for equality under the law. We're continuing to push for Title IX, to have that enforcement it's in schools for safe, for education. We're continuing to fight for Family Medical Leave Act. We finally got pregnancy fairness workers, but we still have to fight for child care to make sure it's affordable for working families. We still have to fight for sub-minimum wage to be increased. It hasn't been increased until 2009. She works for working families. We're still fighting for working families. So these are things that now is still fully fighting for, and we will continue to fully fight for until we see that there is equality and there's equity and there is justice. And we cannot push back on those things. And we'll continue fighting for the things that she has started the fight for us.
Yes, absolutely. As I write and as I research, I continually have the same realizations that, oh, this is the same thing coming up time and time and time again. But I love what you mentioned about being able to look to Pauli Murray as providing a framework of how do we start these discussions, how do we make change? And I think that's the one silver lining in realizing that we're confronting the same problems over and over again, is that there are a lot of women, both past and present, that we can look to and say, all right, here's our North Star, time to move forward. So I would like to end on a question for all of you. So as we look to a new generation of cultural thought leaders, what from Pauli Murray's work and life do you all think that young folks should look to in order to guide them in their journeys as advocates and activists? So for example, something that's come up both in the film and through our discussion is Murray having laid the groundwork for intersectionality. Though the term is coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, we can also look to Jane Crow and make clear connections between the two. So similarly, please feel free to make reference to specific texts, life philosophies, quotes, etc., whatever resonates most with you from Pauli Murray that you think younger folks might need to hear.
So I will be honest, I was ignorant to Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray's legacy and all of the work that she was doing until she became an honoree for our American Women's Quarters program. And so there were two things that have kind of struck me in my research and then, hearing from the video today and then Christian speaking is number one, perseverance in the face of adversity. Consistently having doors shut, being told no, and deciding to pull up a chair anyway. We'll figure it out, I'll make it happen. And then also kind of for the new generation of thought leaders, like you said, I think we live in an era right now where social media and instant gratification is kind of what's important, and like you said, wanting to be famous. And that's not what Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray's legacy was about. We're finding out all of these great things that she did kind of behind the scenes without taking credit for things. And so I think that in and of itself is a lesson for the next generation. Like, sometimes your work is going to be behind the scenes. Not everyone's going to get to be on CNN. Not everyone's going to get to be a political commentator. But that does not mean that your work is any less valuable and any less needed. So I think that's very much what I've taken away, is that behind the scenes work is so key. And then later on in life, there may be a situation like this where you end up on an American Quarter and we're learning all about the wonderful things that you have done.
Absolutely, completely agree. Whoever would like to go next, no pressure.
I'll take it from an educational standpoint. So often we get the opportunity to start when children are very young, to teach them values that hopefully they'll have for the rest of their lives. So like you said, everyone will not be the spokesperson for a big movement, but just taking a kindergarten child and talking about if you see something that's not right, if it's unkind, say something. So I think that all of us in our daily lives can use many of her principles with people, especially with young people when they are like sponges and are enthusiastic and can learn. That's one of the reasons I wrote a book for young people. It's so important to get children when they are young and they're formulating their values. So I think that that's an important way that any of us and all of us can help, just to help someone walk across the street if they're struggling. There are just so many ways doing things that you get no reward for. You know, saying a kind word to somebody can often change their day. So if we used her values, it would be a better world.
That's a great point. It's not just about making these huge impacts, but also about the day-to-day, interacting with people, being kind. Like you said, those values make a difference.
Being a good example.
Absolutely. Christian?
One of the great things I feel about Reverend Dr. Pauli Murray is that she was a disruptor. And when I say disruptor, I mean this in the best sense of the word disruptor. And I think sometimes we hear that, we think negative, but it's not negative. Because what she did was she disrupted by telling the truth. She called out injustice. She spoke the truth. And she challenged things because she said, I know my worth, I know my value, and I will not stand for anything less. And I encourage, and I continue to encourage everyone that to continue to be disruptors for truth and justice, continue to be disruptors for equality. Do not let anyone make you take less than what you know your value and your worth is. If you have to disrupt and you tell the truth, some people are not going to like the truth. It is a lot of people don't like the truth, really, right? But it is okay. But it is important to disrupt because the only way that we can change the system, and to get rid of, dismantle white supremacy, dismantle sexism, dismantle racism, dismantle patriarchy, misogyny, all these isms, transphobia, Islamophobia, any of these things that are causing oppression in this country, ableism, we have to disrupt, okay? And if she didn't tell us anything, she told us that we have to disrupt, and we have to continue to push, and we have to continue to tell the truth, and call out what we see, and tell them how to do it the right way, right?
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you all for your amazing responses. I think we not only got at the fact that you can make real lasting change in your communities. You mentioned social media. I think, that's one way to do things, but also, as Rosita mentioned, you can also do it in your day-to-day by your small or large interactions with folks. And I think you also get at the core of you can also make a bigger impact by doing all of these things and being committed to justice. So, what a great note for us to end on. Thank you all so much for your thought-provoking and inspiring answers. I hope you all who have been able to sit in on this awesome conversation feel empowered by everything that these wonderful women had to say tonight. And thank you.
So our evening's not quite done yet. I'd like to have Ashley come on up here, please. We have a little special presentation.
Good evening again. I am Ashley Bailey, the United States Mint Headquarters Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, and it is an honor to be here for this historic occasion. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak with all of you, especially during this year's Black History Month. The theme for 2024 is African Americans and the Arts. I look forward to sharing how the Mint plays a truly unique role in supporting that theme and how we honor prominent African Americans on our coins and medals. Before I continue, I would like to recognize our partners with us here today. Thank you to everyone from the National Women's History Museum, especially Ms. Singleton McAllister, the Vice Chair for the Museum Board of Directors, and Vice President of External Affairs, Ms. Jennifer Herrera. I'd also like to thank Shay Dawson. I look forward to hearing your insight as the 2022-2024 Pre-Doctoral Fellow in Gender Studies, National Women's History Museum. Where did she go? Yes. You make sure everyone says all of those words correctly every time. I'd also like to thank members from the National Organization for Women and their president, Christian F. Nunez, and the niece of Reverend Dr. Polly Murray, Ms. Rosita Stevens-Holsey. I very much enjoyed our discussion today. Thank you for attending and for your contributions toward preserving your aunt's legacy as a board member of the Polly Murray Center for History and Social Justice. I extend my personal gratitude to all DC Public Library System employees, and especially those who work here in this beautiful Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. The United States Mint headquarters is located just around the corner from here in Washington, D.C. As someone who lives and works in the Capital Region, I am truly proud to say your community is my community. The work you do to educate and uplift Americans is profound. Thank you for the opportunities and services you provide, and thank you for hosting this event. Since the United States Mint was founded in 1792, the women and men of our workforce have taken great pride in rendering the story of our nation through enduring examples of numismatic art. Coins produced by the Mint connect Americans from across the nation. Each coin helps tell a story that teaches us about America's history or connects us to one of our nation's heroes. Coins and medals represent who we are and what we value as a country. They simultaneously celebrate and honor pivotal American people, places, events, and institutions. Today, I'm excited to share one of the Mint's most recently released coins, which honors the changemaker, Reverend Dr. Polly Murray. The Reverend Dr. Polly Murray Quarter is the 11th coin to be released as part of the American Women's Quarters Program collection. The American Women Quarters Program is a 4-year endeavor that celebrates the accomplishments and contributions made by prominent women from United States history. American Women Quarters feature contributions from women in a variety of fields, including but not limited to suffrage, civil rights, abolition, government, humanities, science, space, and the arts. The program also highlights a diverse demographic of women who have been largely underrepresented on national medals, commemorative coins, and circulating coins. For example, African American women are now featured for the first time on U.S. quarter dollar coins. Circulating American Women Quarters feature African American icons such as Maya Angelou, Bessie Coleman, and later this year, Celia Cruz. Next year, the Mint will add 2 more Black changemakers to the collection, including Ida B. Wells and Althea Gibson. Yes, we are excited about that. The Reverend Dr. Polly Murray rightfully earned her place among such great women. Polly M. Murray was a poet, writer, activist, lawyer, priest, and staunch advocate for civil rights. She fought and won many battles against racial and sex discrimination practices. Her legacy is powerful and undeniable. Every American can find inspiration from the life of Reverend Dr. Polly Murray, and I look forward to learning even more about her. I believe one of the most impactful ways to celebrate someone is through sharing their story. Behind me, you can see firsthand a look at how the Mint is sharing the story and legacy of Reverend Dr. Polly Murray. As the newest American Women Quarters Program honoree, she will now be remembered forever as one of the most important American social justice advocates of the 20th century. Scores of role models. Yes. Scores of role models have been featured and illustrated on our artistically crafted coins, but there has never been a coin quite like this one before. The Reverend Dr. Polly Murray Quarter features a common obverse, or heads, design that depicts a portrait of George Washington. This design was originally composed and sculpted by Laura Garden Fraser as a candidate entry for the 1932 quarter, which honored the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. The reverse, or tails, depicts Reverend Dr. Polly Murray's eyeglass-framed face within the shape of the word hope, which is symbolic of Murray's belief that significant societal reforms were possible when rooted in hope. A line from her poem, Dark Testament, characterizes hope as a song in a weary throat. An inscription in the design. Additional inscriptions are United States of America, 25C, the Reverend Dr. Polly Murray, and E Pluribus Unum. Artist Emily Damstra from the United States Mint Artistic Infusion Program designed the reverse image, and the United States Mint chief engraver, Joseph Mena, sculpted the reverse. I hope everyone has the chance to add the Reverend Dr. Polly Murray quarter to your collection. If you would like to get your hands on one sooner, bags and rolls are available for purchase on the United States Mint website, usmint.gov. It is my hope that this quarter and other American Women quarters will inspire future generations of young women. The program is an excellent way to remind people what can be accomplished with vision, determination, and a desire to improve opportunities for all people. Groundbreaking contributions from women like Reverend Dr. Polly Murray paved the way for countless others to follow, including women like me. Her story teaches women to never settle for the status quo, and that you can do so with immense character and integrity. Reverend Dr. Polly Murray's efforts toward equality enable women from all backgrounds to achieve both personal and professional dreams. I hope everyone can visit the National Women's History Museum special exhibition on Reverend Dr. Polly Murray if you haven't done so already. She earned her place in history, and I can't think of a better place to honor her achievements and triumphs than right here in the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. And now for a special presentation. Ms. Stevens-Holsey, will you please join me at the podium? Rosita Stevens-Holsey, on behalf of the United States Mint, I am pleased to present 2 American Women quarters in this shadow box, one from each of our production facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, and to the family of Reverend Dr. Polly Murray. Again, it is truly an honor. It is truly an honor to be here, and we thank you for, excuse me one second, just that quickly, I tapped it. Oh, and look at that, it's literally just a sentence. And again, it's truly an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everyone for attending.
So thanks again for coming, everyone, tonight. This was such a special evening. Thank you to all of our wonderful guests. And we hope that you visit our exhibit on the first floor here on your way out. We also hope that you visit us online at womenshistory.org. And personally, it's been such a pleasure to work on this coin program with the Mint. And I've been doing it since 2021. And I hope that you also dig into your change. You know, of course, you'll find Polly Murray, but also explore the stories of the other women featured in this remarkable program. Share them with children in your lives. Let's know their names and know their stories and help amplify the great contributions and accomplishments of women from our nation's history. So before we go, I do want to mention a very special component of tonight. Everyone here will receive the new coin, courtesy of the Mint. So, on your way out, please, is it at the table? So please head upstairs, up these stairs. If you need to use the elevator, let us know. But stop by our tables up there, and be sure to stop by the Mint's table to pick up your very own quarter. So enjoy. Thank you so much.